Monday of the month of May. A new month, a new week, and a new Monday review with myself, Aiden. Before getting into all the details about the movie and the actual review, I'll just give you a quick summary of the plot, a part of the plot, and I think it's going to sound pretty similar. It's just a normal world like this that you and I live in, and a guy just decides to be a superhero and fight some bad guys. Now, I know what you're thinking. It sounds very similar to this movie right here, Kick-Ass, which was a huge film in 2009, early 2010, whenever it came out. But that's not what movie I'm reviewing today. I'm reviewing a 2010 film, came out late 2010, with a very small release. It's called Super. It stars Rainn Wilson, who you might know as Dwight from The Office, Ellen Page, who you might know from Inception and Juno, and Liv Tyler, who you'd know from Lord of the Rings and that crappy movie, The Strangers, that really boring horror movie. This movie was featured in a lot of film festivals in 2010, and then it came out at the beginning of April 1st, I believe, actually, in the United States. So it had a really small release, and it only made a couple $100,000, while its budget was $2 million. So it didn't really get that big of a release, but I really wish it had. I wish it had a more widespread release because it deserves it. It's a very good movie. It's right up there in quality, just like Kick-Ass. They are very similar and both very good. I'll just say it straight up. These are both really awesome movies. So I'll be comparing them and referencing Kick-Ass just to give you a better idea on this movie because a lot of people have seen Kick-Ass. This movie, Super, differs from Kick-Ass in a few ways, and I'll tell you those ones. See, in Kick-Ass, it's just kind of a kid who decides he wants to be a superhero and fight crime, and there's kind of these bad guys who are deep involved in drugs and stuff, and there's not really any of that in this movie. Rainn Wilson plays Frank, who's married to Liv Tyler, who plays Sarah, and one day when Sarah's out of the house, Kevin Bacon, who plays Jacques, comes by looking for her, and Liv Tyler plays a recovering drug addict, and things are just kind of weird between her and Rainn Wilson, and their relationship hasn't been that great, and then one day she leaves him for Jacques, Kevin Bacon. Since his wife has left him, Frank goes into depression, and then he has this vision from a superhero from the All Jesus Network, which he watches on TV, and he gets this vision that he should become a superhero called the Crimson Bolt. He makes this really lame outfit, this really skin-tight, weird, mask thing going on, this big red skin-tight outfit, and it's a bit strange. It almost kind of looks, it's weirder than the Kick-Ass outfit, that's for sure, and it's Rainn Wilson, so he just looked even nerdier. But he goes on this spree, just carrying a wrench and hitting people, like a child molester, drug dealers, and he's just going on this vigilante spree, and it's really strange. It goes from being funny to almost getting weird and shocking. It gets really strange. So throughout the movie, all of this ends up leading up to dealing with Jacques, because Jacques, turns out, is the owner of a strip bar, and he is a drug dealer who is heavily involved in the drug scene and weapons and a lot of dangerous stuff, and Rainn Wilson kind of gets in over his head. He ends up becoming partners with Ellen Page, who is an employee at a comic book store where Rainn Wilson was doing research on becoming a superhero when prepping for going on his sprees and whatnot. There are numerous parts in this movie that it's funny, but then like I said, it's just shocking. Like, things just come out of nowhere that you are not expecting. This movie is absolutely not afraid to push the boundaries. They don't give a shit who they offend, what's shocking, or anything. Like, it's not one of those movies that's got racist jokes or that sort of shocking or pushing boundaries. But things that happen, it's graphic. Just like Kick-Ass, it's a pretty graphic movie, and it's just, things just come out of nowhere. I can't say anything but that. I don't want to give any specific examples because I don't want to give it away. But as the movie progresses, it does get a bit stranger, a bit weirder, a bit more graphic, a bit more shocking, and the movie almost becomes depressing. The funniness kind of goes downhill. It's not a bad thing because the movie's still good, but there's not as many funny jokes. It's funny because it's so shocking. You're like, oh my god, what the hell just happened? And you kind of reel back in your chair, and it's kind of like, what the fuck? That was really messed up. And I'm sure you'll find yourself thinking that because that's how this movie is. Things that happen in the ending are a little bit unexpected, namely something I don't want to say because that'll give something away, but I won't tell you what happens. But watch this movie and I'm sure you'll know what I'm talking about. It's one of those things that you just don't see in a lot of movies. I want to tell you, but I'm not going to. Find out on your own. It's really weird though, and it's another one of those things that comes out of nowhere. It's very shocking when you see it. all in all, it's a very good movie, right up there in quality with Kick-Ass. I think, as I said before, I'd give this movie 8 out of 10 stars or 4 out of 5. I know that's kind of weird, but yeah, 8 out of 10. I'll give it 8 out of 10 because it is sort of lacking at parts. And Rainn Wilson, I'm not a fan of him really outside of The Office. Like, he's just not that funny of a guy. If you see him on talk shows, he's not that funny without writers, I guess. But he's good at acting, just he himself is not that funny. So, and especially seeing him in this sort of role, it's similar to Dwight from The Office, but it is fairly different. So, I don't know, maybe it's just an adjustment that needs to be made. He needs to be doing more movies and stuff, especially since The Office, I think, will be winding down soon with Steve Carell having just left this past week. But that's kind of irrelevant to this. But it was distributed by IFC Films, which is a company that does a lot of independent movies, which is what this was. It wasn't really that independent of a movie. Like, it wasn't one of those ones that I could do in my basement, but it was one of those higher budget films, of course, with a $2 million budget. That's quite a bit more than I or you would have for an independent film, but it was good, and I think it deserves a bit more of a distribution. And when it comes out on DVD, check it out. I'm definitely gonna pick this movie up if it's available on DVD and Blu-ray soon. I will definitely get it because it is a good movie to watch again, and I would definitely recommend checking it out. Find it if you can. You can watch it online. I know that's kind of frowned upon, but what are you going to do when it's limited to a few cities in the United States when the majority of people aren't in the United States? So check this movie out if possible. Do so. Watch Kick-Ass as well. Maybe do a bit of comparison between the two movies. I recommend watching this one as well. They're both A+ movies. That's it for me this week. Enjoy the rest of the reviews this week, and I will see you next Monday.